Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel. For today's video, I will be finally sharing my favorite books of 2024. I read 61 books in 2024 and I only have 9 favorites. Normally I narrow it down to a top 12, but for 2024, I really didn't read a lot of books that really stuck with me. A lot of the books just weren't very memorable to me, so if you're wondering why some books that I mentioned in my best books of the year so far video are not on this list, it's because towards the end of the year, I really didn't think about them. When I'm doing favorites of the year, I really want to talk about books that I can't stop thinking about and that there's at least one scene or one moment in the book that I keep thinking about. I really want to narrow down the list of like good books that I really enjoyed and that really shaped my year and my reading year. So these 9 books are all kind of books that I really can't stop thinking about, and there's always like one scene in them that I will never forget. I will also link some of my past favorites of past years down below, and my Goodreads challenge and my Goodreads year in books. All of that will be linked down below. I'm going to go from number 9 to number 1. So coming in at number 9, we have The Fake Mate by Lana Ferguson. Doctors and werewolves, Mackenzie and Noah decide to be fake mates to get Mackenzie's grandmother off her case about settling down, and after Noah's status as an alpha threatens his job. This was just a really fun werewolf romance. It definitely had more smut than I expected, but I really enjoyed the characters. I really enjoyed the romance. It's set in kind of like this modern society where werewolves just exist and it's like a normal thing. The plot in here was very minimal. It was kind of just about Mackenzie and Noah falling in love and getting to know each other. And I really loved the romance in here and the relationship between Mackenzie and Noah. It was just really entertaining and I couldn't stop reading, and I had to buy this beautiful edition from Fairy Loot because I just really loved this book and I needed this pretty edition. Then coming in at number 8, we have The Serpent and the Wings of Night by Carissa Broadbent. This is the first book in the Nightborn duet. The adopted human daughter of the Nightborn vampire king, Aurea, has been trained to kill. Her only chance at gaining real power is to win a legendary tournament, but winning won't be easy against vicious vampires. To survive, Aurea is forced to make an alliance with Rain, a dangerous and mysterious rival vampire. This was a really interesting and complex and kind of confusing vampire system, but I really enjoyed it. I really liked Aurea and I loved learning about her and the world and her father and all of these other like vampire species, I guess. The ending was so shocking. I literally cannot stop thinking about that ending. It was just so crazy. The trials and just like all the competition stuff was very interesting and different. I also did enjoy the romance subplot that was happening. I didn't feel like super connected to the romance and the characters, but I just think in general, I can't stop thinking about the ending of this book and just what happened and how crazy it was, and just so much was going on and it was action-packed and it was interesting, and I don't know, it just really stuck with me, so I couldn't help but put it on this list. Coming in at number 7, we have Kit McBride Gets a Wife by Amy Bari. The 4 McBride brothers have their world turned upside down when their precocious younger sister secretly places an advertisement for a mail-order bride. I read this in my Reading Cowboy Romances vlog, so I will link that video down below, but this pleasantly surprised me. This is a historical cowboy romance western. It's not like super cowboy, but it was just so funny. I loved the characters. It's a very lighthearted, fun book, and the romance is very cute. There is very low steam in this book. There is actually no sex scene at all, which I found very interesting, and I feel like it really worked for this book. I loved how the main characters, Kit and Maddie, described each other and like how they felt about each other. I really loved the writing. I just loved the whole family. Junebug, the sister, just made me laugh so much. She was so funny and curious, and she just wanted like a female in the family. She wanted a friend. It was just a very sweet, heartfelt historical romance, and it made me laugh out loud so many times. Coming in at number 6, we have Lost and Lassoed by Lila Sage. This is the third book in the Rebel Blue Ranch series. Teddy has been dealing with a lot, and on top of it, she has lost her job. Gus also has a lot on his plate, including raising his 6-year-old daughter, who he has all summer. Gus decides he finally needs some help and reluctantly hires Teddy as a nanny. But can their situation work when they constantly bicker, or will they realize that they may need each other more than they can understand? This really surprised me. I did not expect to love this book that much because I wasn't really a fan of Teddy in the first 2 books. I found that she was kind of a little too loud and obnoxious and just always there. But reading her book really changed my mind about her. I related to her a lot and the struggles that she was going through. You just really got to see this deeper, more emotional side to her, which I really loved. And I really liked Gus. He really wanted to do everything for his family. He had a big heart. He was also a fantastic dad. I really loved the growing bond between Teddy and his daughter. And I loved how slow their relationship was. It was a very slow burn, but it was so beautiful to see them realize how much they needed each other and how much they loved each other. And I just really loved the relationship in here and the ranch farm vibes and kind of this like found family. It was just such a great book and my favorite in the series so far. Now for my top 5, coming in at number 5 is Chain of Thorns by Cassandra Clare. This is the third and final book in the Last Hours trilogy. This is obviously part of Cassandra Clare's Shadowhunter series. It is the third book in the series, so I can't really explain exactly what this book is about, but broadly, this follows James, Cordelia, Lucy, and the Merry Thieves, who must save London from a prince of hell. This is probably my least favorite Shadowhunter series, but this is my favorite in the trilogy. I really enjoyed this final book. I did also listen to it off and on with the audiobook. I cried so much while reading this. I literally sobbed while reading certain parts of this, but this was such a wild roller coaster. So much happened in this final book. The character development in here was great. So much got resolved. I still have questions and I'm still angry about certain things that happened in this book, but Cassandra Clare really did not hold back on this one. She did some horrible things in this book. There were some moments where it did kind of drag and it was a little boring, but towards the end, a lot was going down. It was pretty action-packed. I loved the ending. I love how Cassandra Clare kind of tied things together in the end, and I really loved seeing Will and Tessa and Jem and Magnus. It was just wonderful to be back in the Shadowhunter world, and I can't help but love these books and love the characters and just everything about this world, so I did really enjoy this final book. Coming in at number 4, we have Good as Gold by Serena Bowen. Childhood friends Layla and Mateo haven't seen each other in 14 years, but Mateo is back home for his brother's wedding where he runs into Layla, who is recently divorced and ready to have a child on her own, but drunkenly asks Mateo to be the father. I don't know why I don't have a physical copy of this book yet. I really, really loved it. Obviously, it's number 4 on my list. I actually sobbed while reading this book. I loved it so much, and it was my first book of the year, and I still think about this book. I felt so connected to Layla and Mateo and just what they were going through and what they wanted and their concerns about being parents and having children and doing that phase of life. I could just really relate to that phase of their life and like what they were going through. I loved the romance. I loved how slow burn it was. They truly were like friends to lovers, and they built this beautiful connection that turned into this like wonderful relationship. I loved the small town vibes. I loved Mateo's family. You could just tell how much Mateo loved Layla through like his actions and everything that he did for her. And that necklace, I don't want to spoil things, but oh my god, that necklace made me sob. This is definitely one of my favorite books by Serena Bowen. It was just fantastic. For number 3, I'm kind of cheating a little bit, but coming in at number 3, we have One Dark Window and Two Twisted Crowns by Rachel Gillig. This is the first and second book in the Shepherd King duet, and of course, I just had to put them together. To me, they are one big story, and I couldn't exclude one or the other. The first book I did give 4 stars, and then the second book I gave 5 out of 5 stars. Elsbeth has an ancient spirit locked inside her mind. She calls him the Nightmare. He keeps her safe. But after an encounter with a dangerous highwayman, her life takes a drastic turn. She teams up with the highwayman, who turns out to be the king's nephew, to save the kingdom from dangerous magic. The first book was a little confusing to get into. It did kind of take me 100 to 150 pages to really get into the story, but once I did, I was loving it, and I loved the second book so much. I cried so much during the second book. It did kind of take a little bit of a different turn with the second book because it is in more than one POV, whereas the first book is mainly in Elsbeth's point of view. So we kind of changed POVs a little bit, which was a little jarring at first, but I just grew to really love reading about the other characters and getting to know everybody and seeing all of their romances and seeing everything that went down, and just the whole magic system in here was so interesting, and I really loved how the end unfolded and everything with the Shepherd King and the Nightmare and all of that was just so fantastic and interesting, and just all the connections between all the characters and them kind of building this like found family. And I don't know, these books are just so beautiful and I loved them so much, and I really didn't think I would love this duology that much. I thought I would maybe like give them both like 3 stars or something, but I loved them, and I am never going to stop thinking about this second book and what happened in this book and just everything that unfolded. I know that at some point I'm going to want to reread these, and I'm probably going to annotate them. I just really loved this duology, and I highly, highly recommend it. If you've been putting it off, go read it right now. My second favorite book of the year was Ready or Not by Cara Bastone. A surprise pregnancy leads to even more life-changing revelations in this heartfelt, slow-burn friends-to-lovers romance of found family and unexpected love. The premise of this book is very simple. Obviously, Eve finds out that she's pregnant, and she now has to deal with this life-changing event, and she is still kind of figuring things out, and she is possibly maybe in love with 2 people. She just has a lot going on, and I loved this book so much. It did take me a little bit to get into it, but once I was into it, I was like, oh my god, I'm loving this book. It's making me cry. I could really relate to Eve. I loved the romance in this book. I loved Shep so much. The way he just literally waited for Eve, and he just did everything for her without her asking, and he was just so kind, and he had such a big heart. I loved the way that he treated Eve. I really loved all the conversations in here about being parents and how it takes a village and how your life changes, and just all of that. The conversations centering that was just so wonderful, and again, made me cry. I sobbed my eyes out. This is also another book that I want to reread at some point and just annotate the heck out of it, because it was so beautiful, and there are still scenes in this book that I can't stop thinking about. This definitely leans more like women's fiction. The romance doesn't come until later on in the book. It was just such a beautiful, heartwarming story, and I cannot wait to read more from Cara Bastone. And my favorite book of 2024 is Immortal Dark by Tejas Girma. A lost heiress must infiltrate an arcane society and live with the vampire she suspects killed her family and kidnapped her sister. This is young adult, but it really did not feel like a young adult story. It kind of felt like new adult-ish. It didn't really have like anything super like steamy or anything like that. There is some kind of interaction that are a little steamy, but for the most part, it is very young adult. It just didn't read like YA. I read the first few chapters of this book and I was immediately hooked. I loved this world. I thought it was so interesting and different and complex, and I feel like the author really did the effort to build this world and make kind of these backgrounds for these characters and this family and this secret society and the school. It just felt like the author put in a lot of work and effort, and you could see that when you were reading this book. And there were twists every couple of chapters that I really did not see coming, and I loved the magic vampire system in here. It was so interesting and different. It genuinely felt so unique and nothing like I've read before. I also really loved Kidan. She was such a strong fearless character, and I loved how she always fought for answers and she was always ruthless, but she also had like a big heart and she cared for a lot of people and her family and her friends that she quickly made. This book did have kind of some horror gore vibes to it, which I also really enjoyed. I also loved Susenyos. I think that's how you pronounce his name. He was such an interesting vampire. I loved him. I cannot wait to see what happens in the second book. I'm dying for the second book. Also, there are a couple of scenes in here that I will never forget. I definitely need to go back and kind of annotate the quotes and stuff, and I'm really happy that I have this beautiful edition. I just love this book, and I'm so happy I have this beautiful edition. I can't wait to see what the cover of the second book is gonna look like. But if you want a fun, interesting, kind of dramatic vampire secret society story, I highly, highly recommend Immortal Dark. So those were all my favorite books of 2024. Let me know if you've read any of the ones that I mentioned and what you think about them. And let me know what your favorite book of 2024 was. I would love to know. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Thank you so much for watching. Make sure to give it a like, subscribe, follow me on all my other social media, and I will see you in my next one. Bye.